Hi everyone, welcome back. Really good to see you again. Hope you enjoyed the last session on the top 5 marketing misconceptions for startups. This time we're going to be talking about how to develop your brand and value proposition. So we're going to break this down into two different sections today. We're going to talk about brand proposition first of all, and second we're going to talk about value proposition development. So let's talk about brand proposition. First of all, okay. So what is a brand? Okay, so I'm not going to talk about like the origins of a brand or branding of horses or any of that stuff. I'm just going to jump straight into what branding is today. So when you think about branding, branding effectively is where you form a relationship with, a company. And that company, in between you and it, you have an emotional bond with that company. And a brand is designed to generate an emotional response between you and it. Okay. And when you think about your favorite brand, you will associate with brands whereby that brand is a positive extension of who you are as a person. Okay. So when you think about your favorite brand, so think about your favorite brand now, okay? What do you think about? So say if your favorite brand is Nike, what do you think about them? Would you think, for instance, about the quality of the stitching on their garments, first of all, or that you felt good when you wore them, when you wore one of their tops, for instance? If your favorite brand is Apple, would you think about the durability of their screens or the feeling that you get being an Apple's user, right? So it's not the what, it's the how it makes you feel, okay? So it's the feeling, it's that emotional connection between you and the company. So now, I bet you those of you who have got B2B or B2B2C propositions think you're off the hook here. No, sorry. Um, if you've got a relationship with a financial decision maker of any kind, right, it could be a personal financial decision maker or a commercial financial decision maker, there is an emotional connection. It doesn't matter. If there's a financial transaction to be made, then there's an emotional connection. Um, and a really good example of that actually is let's just go back in time, say about 20, 21 years ago, and go back to that Apple example. So 21 years ago, Apple didn't have retail stores, right? Apple distributed via other retailers. So Apple's B2B brand relationships at that point in time were just as important as their B2C brand relationships. So they're classic B2B to C, right? They're the bricks and mortar, they are the manufacturer to the bricks and mortar to the consumer. So they are the beginning of B2B to C. Now we're going to talk about how you reach your customers in the next module, but you can start to see how important brand plays no matter what your proposition is, whether it's B2C, B2B, or B2B to C. So let's talk about a structure of a brand. So it's very simple. Sorry, I can see that my picture is obstructing one of the words, but I'll just tell you. So there's three fundamental parts to a brand. There's vision, mission, and values, fundamentally. So vision is your bold statement. Okay, it's an internally facing statement. Okay, and it's the statement where you dream big and you use really clear language. And this is your inspirational statement about your idealistic, emotional future of your company. So some good examples of this are, and I'm not saying that I love these companies, I've got no affiliation with these companies. I think these are good examples of vision statements. Disney has a good vision statement. It is to make people happy. Also, Oxfam's vision statement is a just world without poverty. And Tesla's mission statement is to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. These are great, bold, aspirational statements. Okay, so when you're thinking about your own vision statement, what I want you to do is to do that dream big, but be very clear, right? You don't want a great big wordy statement because everybody's just going to kind of lose interest. So don't, just dream big. The next one down is the point at which you can start thinking a bit more practically. Your mission statement is your external facing statement about the who, the what, and the why of your company. Again, no affiliation. Some good examples are Amazon's, which is to be the Earth's most customer-centric company where customers can find and discover anything they might want to buy online and endeavours to offer its customers the lowest possible prices. So the who, the what, and the why. Right. Whole Foods is our deepest purpose as an organisation is helping support the health, well-being and healing of both people, customers, team members and business organisations in general and the planet. And if this mission statements don't just apply to profit-making organisations, Greenpeace's mission statement is Greenpeace is an independent campaigning organisation which uses non-violent creative confrontation to expose global environmental problems and to enforce the solutions which are essential to a green and peaceful future. All really great examples of mission statements. So next level down is values, and values are where things start to get real on a day-to-day level. So these are the principles and behaviours that are expected from everyone in the organisation, and the word that's obscured there is everyone. And when I say everyone, I mean everyone, and this comes from the top. So say I'm talking to you and you're the founder of your startup. If you choose a value for your organisation that you can't naturally live with as part of your own personality, don't choose it, change it. So for instance, if you were, and I don't know any of you yet, okay. So if you were the sort of person that had like a closed door policy or like a big exec parking space or that sort of person, and you'd chosen a corporate value of inclusivity, the people who worked for you would get really disaffected really quickly because they would see that you're not living that value. You're not being an inclusive person, right? I mean, this is clearly an extreme example of that. But if you can't live the values of your own organization, people are going to see through you really quickly. And this is extremely important in all companies, but most importantly in service brands, where interaction with people is the brand experience. Okay, so somebody calls up and the person on the other end of the telephone has to actually deliver the brand experience. You know, there's no other brand experience other than the experience that the person is getting on the other end of the phone, for instance. So service brands mean that the people who work for the organization are the most important asset in that organization. So when you're choosing those values, you need to make sure that when you're choosing your people, they have to embody those values. And then one other really, really important point is your brand proposition. It's not soft. This isn't the soft stuff. Your brand and your culture they walk hand in hand with your commercial strategy. So if you think about it like this, your commercial strategy is what you want done, right, on one hand. And your brand strategy is the way you want it done. Your brand strategy is your recruitment, your retention, your performance reviews, the culture of your organization, all built into one. And you must not ignore it. Okay, it's really crucial to the success of your business. So it's really important. So it's the commercials is what, brand is how. Okay, right. But here's the thing about brands. They're quite subjective, right? And anything that's subjective is just pretty much open to general opinion. And when things are subjective, they tend to be, I mean, I've had this conversation with, gosh, I can't even tell you how many people I've had this, but you start the sentence, other people start the sentence with, oh, well, I'm not a brand expert, but, and then you have like a 30-minute conversation about how they are a brand expert, and you think, oh my God, it's really soul destroying. So what you have to do is to find a way of navigating what could be this kind of never ending kind of back and forward of opinions about what people think. Well, I think it should be this, and oh, I think it should be that. And opinions are like, you'll have heard the line, everybody's got one. And what you need to do is to create a framework where you can make the subjective as objective as possible. So this is what I'm going to help you with. I'm going to give you a framework within which you can do that. Okay. So this is a purpose map. And a purpose map is designed to take as much of the subjectivity out of the brand building process as possible. And if you've got a team in place already, get them together and brainstorm this map. Okay. So get them together, if you've got them in one place or virtually, get them in a virtual room and brainstorm, what does the world need in the context of your proposition? What do we love? And what are we great at? Okay, I'm going to give you an example in a minute and list them all out. Okay, and it's a great opportunity also for you to kind of start talking about this, because it'll also help you a little bit further down the line when you're starting to think about your proposition as well. So start with this. Okay, it's also really similar to the hedgehog concept. This is another Jim Collins proposition, and if you get a chance, one of his other books is called Good to Great. I know I said if there's one book, but if you've got appetite for another book, Good to Great, it's another good one. And this great concept built on the idea of are you a hedgehog or a fox? There's an essay, The Hedgehog and the Fox, from Isaiah Berlin. He divided the world into hedgehogs and foxes based on the parable, the fox knows many things, but the hedgehog knows one big thing. So the hedgehog concept is this crystalline concept that flows from the deep understanding about the intersection of three circles. One, what are you deeply passionate about? Two, what can you be the best at the world? And three, what drives your economic or resource engine? And then, from all of these three things, then, that's your hedgehog. But maybe that's a story for another day. So what you need to do is to take some time to build out your purpose map. And once you've got all of the things that are within the world needs, we love, we're great at, you'll have a great big list, okay? And you need to distill it down. So I did this exercise recently for a bit of consultancy I did for an organic dairy brand, and I'm just going to show you what we distilled down the purpose map into. Okay, so this is where we got to. So for the organic dairy brand I was working with, we got to the world needs nutritious produce, goodness, trustworthy suppliers, delicious tasting produce, natural products. We love doing the things the right way, being proud of the produce and the way the supply chain is managed, supporting the environment, carbon neutrality, supporting communities locally wherever we are. And we are great at organic produce at its best, farming expertise and know-how, guilt-free refreshment, and no compromises on quality. Great purpose map. Okay. Now from there, we distilled these down into like about 7 or 8 brand keywords, brand attributes. Okay, so these are the brand attributes. Okay, so we've got trust, organic produce, quality and goodness, environment, expertise, pride, and communities. Okay, so these 7 or 8 brand attributes then flow into the brand framework that we looked at right at the very top of this video. Okay, so this is the framework that we looked at earlier, but with the vision, mission, and values inserted. Okay, so their big bold statement is growing sustainable organic communities one fridge at a time. Then their mission, their who, their what, and the why is that earning the trust of families across our markets to deliver nutritious, guilt-free produce through our expertise and commitment to organic farming and sustainability practices. And their values, which were existing values that they wanted to continue to use, which are goodness for the environment, goodness for the community, and goodness for you. So you can see how from something incredibly subjective, and these guys had been going round and round in circles for more than a year, had gone from round and round in circles to being able to really focus in and get something that worked really well for them. And from there, they've been able to build out not only their brand framework, but also all of their push communication materials. They've got huge pitch decks that they've been working on. Their web proposition, they've completely rebuilt as well. Then they've just kind of stepped it up. And you can really see that in the quality of their materials now. So it's been a great baseline for them. So a great piece of work all round. Okay, so then next up is value proposition development. So what's a value proposition? So a value proposition isn't just a product or a service. An effective value proposition communicates what a customer can expect to receive by using a product or a service. So you have to think about a value proposition as to what you're promising the customer. So value is often the difference between the customer's perception of the cost versus the anticipated benefit they realize. It's kind of like the difference between buying and selling. And again, we'll do this in the distribution strategy module. A product or a service that's sold to customers versus a proposition is something that you buy. And it's the difference between kind of push and pull. So when you think about your own proposition, you should always be thinking about it in terms of the benefit to your target audience and apply what I call the so what principle. So every time you think about a benefit that you think might apply to one of your segments, you should always say, well, so what? And if the benefit that you come up with still stands up against the segment you're thinking about, then you know it's good. Okay. So what principle always works. So I've got 2 sources here that I think you should have a look at. And I've used two sources of information as the basis of this part of the module. The first is this great source of information for innovation called Board of Innovation, and I've put the link here. It's boardofinnovation.com. And the second is Value Proposition Design. A Value Proposition Design is a book which you can buy, and it also has an associated website called Strategyzer.com. Some of the tools are free to download. Some of them, I think you have to buy the book before you can get access to them, but the book's great actually. So if you're going to buy one, then have a look. So first thing when you're defining your value proposition is to define your target audience. So as we talked about in the first module, you need to create your target audiences and segments. Think about your primary target, your secondary target, your tertiary target, just in case you need to pivot. Who are you creating value, right? Who are your most important customers? Who are going to be your early adopters? Because again, when you're thinking about when you're going to market, whilst you do need to be aware that you might need to pivot, you also need to think about where your first income is going to be coming from. Those early adopters for you are going to be your bread and butter. Those people are going to be keeping you afloat first. So you need to be very aware of who they are and making sure that your MVP, your minimum viable product, is targeted to them. Okay, so that's first up. So once you've defined your target audience and your segments, the next bit that I'm going to talk about is per segment. Okay, so you can't just have this big amorphous mass of this is my target audience. You've got segments, okay, and you need to do the next bit for each segment, okay? The first thing you need to do, and this is a 3-step process, what we're doing is number 1, identifying pain points. Number 2, we're identifying the gains, and number 3, we're identifying the jobs, okay? So first up, we're identifying pain points. So pain point is anything that is annoying your customers, before, during, and after trying to get a job done, or anything that means that they can't get the job done. Okay, so think about it in terms of what do your customers define as too costly? What makes your customer feel bad? What are their frustrations? What's giving them a headache? How current are the value propositions underperforming for your customers? What are the main difficulties and challenges your customers encounter? These are the sort of questions you need to be asking yourself when you're defining the pain points. It's about you creating problem statements so that you can solve these problems for your segments, okay? Then the flip side of that, it's not just about pain, it's also about gain. So the gains describe the outcomes and the benefits that your customers want, okay? So it's all then about what savings would make your customers happy, what quality levels do they expect, how do current value propositions delight your customers, what would make your customers' jobs or lives easier. So these is so it's the flip side. It's not pain, it's gain as well. And then the third thing you need to think about is you need to also define the jobs. So what task is your customer trying to complete? What is the job that they're trying to do, the task at hand, to either complete in their work or their life? What problem is it that they are trying to solve? Not the one you're trying to solve. What problem are they trying to solve? So questions to ask are, what's the one thing your customer couldn't live without accomplishing? What does your customer need to accomplish it that involves interaction with others? What emotional needs are your customers trying to satisfy? That sort of thing. So these jobs are the customer's problem. So that's step 3. So you've got gains, pains, and jobs. These 3 things you need to identify for each segment, okay? Then the next thing you need to identify is your competition. And what I recommend you do is to identify your key competitors by each segment. And then one of the easiest things you can do is to map them against two key criteria that you want to be measured against. So a couple of examples I've got here are high versus low price, high quality versus low quality, or in this example I've got on this positioning map, low versus high nutritional value versus great versus poor taste. So you can see it's really easy to map you versus competitors. And then you can see kind of where you might want to move to. And you'll see also where the gap in the market might be, because it's blatantly obvious where the gap in the market might be. So once you've got these four things ready to go, that's the point at which you're ready to build out your value proposition. And it looks like this. And what you want to do is you need to write a really compelling statement as to why you're different and worth paying attention to. And it can be as simple as something like this. So the red bits are the bits that you need to fill in. So you've got our, insert name of product or service, helps your identified segment who want to, and that's where you put the name of the job, the problem that the customer is trying to solve, by either reducing, avoiding, and one of your customers' pain points, and increasing, enabling, again, unlike insert name of competitor. And once you've got that, I think you'll find that it is really blindingly obvious what it is you're actually trying to do. It's really simple, but it is incredibly effective. And then once you've got that, that's the point at which you're able to create your MVP. And when you've got your minimum viable product, your goal is to get it to market, to learn as much as you can with as little as with as little as possible, so that you can go back and forward as many times as possible. What you don't want to do is to go all in once, because if you do something like that, you might not be able to go back for a second go. And look, there's so many analogies about failure, right? And you have to think about repositioning failure as growth. And that's certainly something that I had to do. I can't tell you how many times I've failed. I've failed and failed and failed over and over and over again. But I also can't tell you how much I've learned. I mean, it is incredible how much I've learned about so many things. But, it's a journey, right? And so you have to remember there's no growth without failure. So make sure that you get yourself to market and put yourself in a position where you can launch, test, get feedback, enhance, launch, test, feedback, and get yourself in this virtual circle, not a vicious circle, a virtuous circle where you're constantly testing, learning, and you're getting that feedback, okay? My last Jim Collins analogy of the day is bullets, not cannonballs. And there's a great story where I think it was Spanish Armada is out in the English Channel or something. And imagine the scenario: you've got a load of gunpowder and a gunpowder and a cannonball, and there's one Spanish galleon across the sea. If you put all of your gunpowder into that cannonball and fire it, if you miss, you're done, right? But if you put a little bit of gunpowder into a bullet and fire it, if you're 10 feet off, it doesn't matter, right? You put a little bit of gunpowder into the next bullet, you fire it, you're 5 feet off. A little bit of gunpowder into the bullet, your bullseye, right? And then you put the rest of the gunpowder into the cannonball, you sink the ship, right? It's bullets, not cannonballs. That's the way you have to think about it, right? So it's been a little bit longer today. I do apologize, but I hope it's been really useful. And I will talk to you next time. Thanks very much. Bye bye.